The room was silent except for the flicker of a holographic display illuminating the faces of Earth's top officials. The council chamber, hidden deep beneath the icy surface of Europa, was the last stronghold of humanity's fractured leadership. President Daniel Bryce stood at the center, his jaw clenched, his graying hair disheveled. On the screens around him, the broadcast from the Rosen warlords played in grim detail. An alien figure loomed large, its reptilian features contorted into a sadistic grin. General Jorhaz, the leader of the Rosen, was addressing not just the humans, but the entire galaxy. Behind him, human captives knelt, their faces pale and hopeless. Jorhaz's voice, deep and guttural, filled the chamber. "These creatures thought they could stand against us," he sneered. "Now, they are nothing more than an example. Witness the cost of defying the Rosen Empire." One by one, the captives were executed, their screams echoing before the signal cut off. The room fell into an oppressive silence. "Turn it off," Bryce muttered, his voice barely audible. The display flickered off, plunging the room into semi-darkness. "We've lost Mars, Titan, and now Europa is all we have left. How much longer until they find us here?" General John Reed, a stoic man with a face lined from years of combat, stepped forward. "We can't fight them head-on, Mr. President. Our fleets are gone, our colonies destroyed. We need another solution." Bryce exhaled sharply, his eyes scanning the room. The men around him, the brightest minds of Earth's shattered leadership, offered no answers. Their silence was an admission of defeat. Then, from the shadows, a voice broke through the gloom. "Perhaps it's time to let someone else handle this." All heads turned toward the source. Michael Bracewell leaned casually against the doorway, arms crossed. He was tall and wiry, with a sharp jawline and piercing green eyes that seemed to see through everyone in the room. He didn't look like a savior. His black jacket was worn, his boots scuffed, but there was an air of confidence about him that made everyone take notice. "And who the hell are you?" Bryce demanded, his frustration boiling over. Michael smirked. "I'm the guy you call when the galaxy's gone to hell. Call me Michael Bracewell, or if you prefer, the Hitman." Reed's eyes narrowed. "I've heard rumors. An operative who went rogue after the last Rosen attack on Earth. You're supposed to be dead." "Not dead," Michael replied, stepping into the light, just waiting for the right moment to make an entrance. Bryce's skepticism was palpable. "And what exactly do you think you can do that we haven't already tried?" Michael took a seat at the table, his demeanor calm, almost bored. "The Rosen don't fear armies. They've crushed everyone we've sent their way. But they're arrogant, and that makes them vulnerable. They expect battleships, fleets, soldiers. They won't see me coming." Reed crossed his arms. "You're talking about going after them alone. It's suicide." Michael's smirk widened. "I've made a career out of surviving suicide missions. Trust me, this isn't any different." Bryce's frustration shifted to intrigue. "Let's say I believe you. How do you plan to get close to them?" Michael pulled a small device from his jacket pocket and placed it on the table. A holographic display sprung to life, showing detailed schematics of a Rosen communication network. "I've been preparing for this since the Rosen first showed up. Their tech isn't as impenetrable as they think. I can hack into their systems, broadcast a message they won't ignore, and then I'll start taking them down, one by one." The room was silent again, but this time it wasn't from despair. It was the kind of silence that came with hope, a fragile, tentative hope. Bryce leaned forward. "What's your angle, Bracewell? Why do this?" For the first time, Michael's smirk faltered. His voice lowered, the weight of his words hanging in the air. "The Rosen took my brother. He was on Mars when they leveled it. I wasn't there to protect him, but I can make sure no one else suffers the way he did." Reed exchanged a glance with Bryce, who nodded. "All right, Bracewell. You've got our attention. But if you fail—" "I won't," Michael interrupted, standing up. "But if I do, You won't be around to complain about it." With that, he left the room, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. The council members watched him go, their doubts lingering but outweighed by a growing sense of anticipation. Hours later, across the galaxy, a Rosen command ship received an unexpected transmission. The bridge was filled with the harsh glow of alien consoles, and General Jorhaz's lieutenant barked orders to identify the source of the signal. The holographic display crackled to life, revealing Michael's face. He looked relaxed, almost amused, as he addressed the Rosen. "General Jorhaz," he said, his tone calm but deadly, "you've made a mistake. You thought humanity was finished. You thought we'd lie down and let you trample over us. But here's the thing. Humans don't break that easily." Jorhaz appeared on another screen, his reptilian eyes narrowing. "Who are you?" Michael's smile didn't waver. "Just a man with a particular set of skills." "And you?" "You're next." The signal cut off before Jorhaz could respond. On the bridge, the Rosen officers scrambled to trace the transmission, but it was already too late. The message had been delivered, and Michael Bracewell was already on the move. In his hidden base, Michael stood by a sleek, black spacecraft. Its surface gleamed under the dim lights, and its engines hummed with power. Archer, the ship's AI, chimed in with a sarcastic tone. "So, threatening an alien empire on their own turf? Bold move." Michael chuckled. Bold is just another word for necessary. As he climbed into the cockpit, the weight of his mission settled on him. There was no turning back now. The galaxy was watching. The Rosen were hunting him. And the first move was his to make. With a roar, the ship's engines ignited, and Michael Bracewell disappeared into the void, leaving behind a trail of hope and a promise of vengeance. The void of space was cold and unfeeling, but within the sleek black cockpit of his ship, Michael Bracewell's mind was razor-sharp, calculating every detail. Archer, the AI companion integrated into the vessel, broke the silence. "You do realize this is the part where I remind you how utterly insane this plan is." Michael smirked, adjusting the straps of his harness. "Insane plans are the only ones worth doing, Archer. Remind me, what's our ETA to the first target?" "Approximately 23 minutes. And while we're on the subject of insanity, let's discuss the fact that your target has an entire garrison of Rosen soldiers at his disposal. You're one man." Michael leaned back, his eyes fixed on the holographic map hovering before him. "And that one man is going to turn their fortress into a smoking pile of rubble." The first target on his list was Korik, a Rosen warlord known for his brutal raids on human colonies. Korik wasn't just another cog in the Rosen war machine. He was the architect of the attack on Mars. Michael's fists clenched at the memory of his brother, lost in that senseless slaughter. This wasn't just another mission. It was personal. As the ship neared the warlord's stronghold, Archer provided a tactical update. The fortress is shielded by a planetary defense grid. Breaking through undetected is, let's say, highly improbable. Michael grinned, activating a stealth module on the ship's control panel. "Good thing I don't believe in highly improbable. Keep us off their radar, Archer. I'll take it from here." The fortress loomed into view, a sprawling, heavily fortified complex carved into the jagged cliffs of a barren planet. Michael maneuvered the ship into a low orbit, scanning for a weak point in the defenses. His eyes narrowed as he spotted an exposed ventilation shaft near the base of the structure. "Classic villain move," he muttered. "Big fortress, tiny weak spot. Never fails." "Your sarcasm is duly noted," Archer replied. "Just try not to get yourself vaporized." Michael suited up, his black tactical gear blending seamlessly with the shadows. The gear was cutting edge, lightweight yet durable, and equipped with a host of hidden tools. He checked his weapons, a compact plasma pistol and a modified blade with an energy edge, before stepping into the airlock. Moments later, he was gliding silently toward the ventilation shaft, his grappling line securing him to the fortress wall. The sound of alien patrols echoed faintly above, But Michael moved with practiced precision, slipping past their sensors undetected. As he entered the shaft, the air was heavy with the metallic tang of Rosen technology. The hum of machinery vibrated through the walls, a constant reminder of the alien presence all around him. Inside the fortress, the corridors were dimly lit, with alien glyphs pulsating on the walls. Michael's HUD displayed a map of the complex, courtesy of Archer's earlier scans. Korik's quarters were located deep within, heavily guarded and accessible only through a labyrinth of hallways. Michael moved like a shadow, taking out isolated guards with swift, silent efficiency. Each kill was precise, no wasted movements, no unnecessary noise. His blade hummed faintly as it cut through the thick armor of the Rosen soldiers. He paused only long enough to drag their bodies into the shadows, ensuring his presence remained undetected. As he neared Korik's quarters, the security tightened. Archer's voice crackled in his earpiece. "You've got 6 hostiles ahead, all armed with plasma rifles. I'd recommend avoiding them." Michael smirked, his fingers brushing against the grenade strapped to his belt. "Avoiding isn't really my style." He lobbed a smoke grenade into the corridor, the canister hissing as it filled the air with a dense, choking fog. The Rosen soldiers barked commands in their guttural language, their visors struggling to pierce through the haze. Michael moved swiftly, taking advantage of the chaos. His blade found its mark in the first soldier's neck, while his pistol dispatched the second with a clean headshot. The remaining soldiers fired blindly into the smoke, but Michael was always a step ahead. He disarmed one with a brutal twist of its arm, using the stolen rifle to take out another. Within seconds, the corridor was silent. The bodies of the Rosen guards slumped against the walls. "Efficient as always," Archer remarked dryly. "Compliments won't get you a raise," Michael replied, reloading his pistol. The door to Korik's quarters was a massive, reinforced barrier, but Michael had anticipated this. He placed a small device on the locking mechanism, its surface glowing as it interfaced with the alien technology. Within moments, the door hissed open, revealing the warlord's lair. Korik was waiting, his hulking frame towering over Michael. The warlord's scales gleamed under the dim light, and his eyes burned with a mixture of rage and amusement. "A human dares to enter my domain?" Korik's voice was a guttural growl. "You must have a death wish." Michael stepped inside, his movements calm and deliberate. "I'm here to settle a score. You remember Mars, don't you? The colony you wiped out for fun." Korik bared his teeth in a savage grin. Yes. The cries of your people were satisfying." Michael's expression hardened. "You'll regret that." The warlord lunged, his massive claws swiping toward Michael with lethal speed. Michael dodged, his movements precise and controlled. He fired a series of plasma shots, but Korik's armor absorbed the impacts with ease. The warlord roared, charging again, but Michael was ready. He activated a device on his wrist, releasing a burst of energy that temporarily disrupted Korik's armor. The warlord stumbled, giving Michael the opening he needed. With a swift motion, he drove his blade into Korik's side, twisting it for maximum damage. Korik roared in pain, but he wasn't finished. He swung a massive arm, catching Michael off guard and sending him crashing into the wall. Michael gritted his teeth, pushing himself to his feet as Korik advanced. "Resilient," Korik sneered, "but it won't save you." Michael activated a second device, this one releasing a surge of electromagnetic energy that overloaded the systems in Korik's armor. The warlord froze, his movements sluggish as his suit failed him. Michael didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, driving his blade into Korik's chest. The warlord let out a final, guttural cry before collapsing to the ground. Michael stood over the body, his breathing heavy but controlled. "That's from Mars," he muttered. Archer's voice broke the silence. "Target eliminated. Nicely done. Now, might I suggest a quick exit before reinforcements arrive?" Michael nodded, retrieving a data chip from Cork's quarters before making his way back to the ventilation shaft. As he slipped into the shadows, the fortress alarms began to blare, the Rosen soldiers realizing too late that their warlord was dead. By the time they reached Cork's quarters, Michael was already gone, his ship disappearing into the void. Back aboard, he studied the data chip, a grim smile playing on his lips. "One down," he said softly, "and a lot more to go." The void of space stretched endlessly around Michael's ship, but his focus remained razor-sharp as he analyzed the data chip recovered from Cork's quarters. Lines of alien text scrolled across the holographic display, incomprehensible to most, but Archer translated seamlessly. Cork wasn't just a warlord, Archer began. He was coordinating supply routes for the Rosen war machine. Weapons, troops, resources, it all flows through these hubs. Michael leaned back in his seat, his expression unreadable. Then we hit the hubs, cut the flow, disrupt their operations, and watch them scramble. "Bold strategy," Archer remarked. "But they'll adapt quickly. You've already made yourself public enemy number one. General Jorhaz isn't going to sit idly by while you dismantle his empire." Michael's lips twitched into a faint smirk. "Good. Let him come. It saves me the trouble of finding him." The first hub on the list was a massive shipyard orbiting a dying red star. The Rosen used it to produce their monstrous warships, each one designed for maximum destruction. Archer pulled up a schematic of the facility, its defenses bristling with turrets and patrol ships. "Let me guess," Michael said dryly. "Another suicide mission?" "Correct," Archer replied with mock enthusiasm. "And this time, with added anti-personnel drones for your inconvenience." Michael stood, strapping on his gear. "Patch me into their comms when I'm in. I want them to hear me coming." The shipyard came into view, a sprawling mass of alien architecture glowing against the red star's light. Michael piloted his stealth ship into position, weaving through the patrol routes with practiced ease. Archer's voice remained calm, guiding him past each danger. "Docking Bay 4 is your best bet," Archer said. "It's poorly guarded, though I'd hesitate to call anything here easy." Michael maneuvered the ship into the bay, exiting into the shadows. The interior was alive with activity. Rosen engineers and soldiers moved in coordinated chaos, oblivious to the threat lurking among them. He moved swiftly, planting explosive charges on key structural supports. The shipyard was a marvel of engineering, but even the strongest structures had weaknesses. As he worked, he kept his movements efficient, his mind already planning the next steps. It wasn't long before the first body hit the floor. A lone engineer had wandered too close, and Michael's blade silenced him before he could raise an alarm. The kill was quick, clean, and utterly silent. But stealth wasn't meant to last. By the time Michael reached the central control room, alarms were blaring, and the Rosen were swarming. Archer's voice cut through the chaos. "Your exit strategy is looking problematic." Michael smirked, taking cover behind a console. "Who needs a plan when you got explosives?" He detonated the charges remotely, the shockwave rocking the facility. Lights flickered, and the sounds of collapsing metal echoed through the corridors. The shipyard's defenses faltered as chaos erupted. Michael used the confusion to his advantage, dispatching enemies with brutal efficiency. His plasma pistol fired in rapid bursts, each shot finding its mark. The Rosen fought back fiercely, their guttural cries echoing through the smoke-filled air, but Michael was always one step ahead. In the chaos, he accessed the central console, downloading critical schematics and communication logs. Archer's voice was tense. "You've got about 2 minutes before the whole place collapses. I'd suggest moving faster." Michael sprinted through the collapsing corridors, the heat from nearby fires licking at his heels. The path back to his ship was blocked by a squad of Rosen soldiers, their plasma rifles aimed directly at him. "Drop your weapon," one of them barked in broken English. Michael raised his hands, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Sure thing." With a flick of his wrist, He activated a small device on his belt. A concussive wave burst outward, knocking the soldiers off their feet. Before they could recover, Michael was already moving, his blade cutting through them like a scythe. He reached his ship as the shipyard began to implode. The docking bay was a whirlwind of fire and debris, but Michael's focus never wavered. He launched the ship into the void just as the entire facility collapsed behind him, a brilliant explosion lighting up the darkness. Archer's voice broke the silence. "Well, that was subtle." Michael chuckled, checking the data he'd retrieved. "One hub down. Let's see where the next one takes us." The answer came quickly. The logs revealed a hidden base deep within an asteroid field, a staging ground for the Rosen's elite assassins. Michael's jaw tightened. These were the same assassins General Jorhaz had sent after him. It was time to return the favor. Navigating the asteroid field was treacherous, but Michael's reflexes were as sharp as ever. Archer's warnings about incoming debris were almost unnecessary. His instincts guided the ship through each narrow gap and sudden turn. The base itself was a fortress carved into the largest asteroid, its exterior bristling with weaponry. Michael didn't bother with stealth this time. He piloted his ship straight into the enemy's defenses, firing precision shots that disabled key turrets before they could react. The ship docked with a resounding thud, and Michael stepped out, weapons at the ready. The assassins were already waiting, their sleek black armor glinting in the dim light. They moved in eerie unison, their blades and plasma rifles cutting through the air with deadly precision. Michael met them head-on, his own movements a dance of calculated violence. He was outnumbered, but his experience and adaptability turned the tide. He used the environment to his advantage, leading the assassins into traps and using their own weapons against them. One by one they fell. The last assassin, a towering figure with a scarred face, locked eyes with Michael as they circled each other. The fight was brutal. Each strike met with a counter, each move a test of skill and endurance. Michael finally gained the upper hand, driving his blade into the assassin's chest. He stood over the body, his breathing heavy, and muttered, "Tell Jorhaz I'm coming." Archer's voice interrupted the moment. "You do realize he's dead, right?" Michael smirked, wiping the blade clean. Figured it was worth saying. He planted explosives throughout the base, ensuring nothing of value would remain. As he left, the fortress erupted behind him, another blow to the Rosen Empire. Back aboard his ship, Michael reviewed the data he'd gathered. The pieces were coming together, pointing him closer to General Jorhaz. But the Rosen weren't finished. They would regroup, and the next fight would be even deadlier. Michael leaned back in his seat, his expression hard but resolute. "Let them come," he said softly. "I'm just getting started." The Rosen capital loomed ahead, a sprawling, fortress-like city built into the rocky surface of an uncharted planet. Its towers, jagged and menacing, glowed faintly in the perpetual twilight of the alien world. Michael Bracewell stood in the cockpit of his ship, staring at the holographic projection of the capital's defenses. Archer's voice, sharp and clear, broke the silence. "Let's review, shall we? A planetary shield, anti-aircraft batteries, thousands of soldiers, and an entire fleet station in orbit, all standing between you and General Jorhaz. Not to mention, they know you're coming." Michael adjusted the straps on his tactical vest, his expression calm. "They don't know when or how. That's the edge I need." Yes. Classic Bracewell overconfidence. "Should I start preparing a eulogy?" Michael smirked, his hand brushing against the hilt of his energy blade. "No need. Just keep the ship ready for extraction. I'll handle the rest." The plan was as bold as it was dangerous. Michael would infiltrate the capital's outer defenses using a stolen Rosen access code, bypassing the planetary shield. From there, it was a straight path to the heart of the fortress, where Jorhaz waited. He'd spent days preparing, studying every detail of the capital's layout, every patrol route, every potential weak point. As the ship approached the shield's perimeter, Archer deactivated the cloaking field and transmitted the access code. For a tense moment, the ship hovered in silence, the shield shimmering like a living barrier. Then, with a faint hum, a small section flickered and opened, allowing the ship through. "First hurdle cleared," Archer said. "Now comes the hard part." Michael piloted the ship toward a narrow canyon on the outskirts of the city. The terrain was rugged, the jagged rocks offering enough cover to land undetected. As he stepped out into the cold, thin air, he felt the weight of the mission settle on his shoulders. This was it, the culmination of everything he'd fought for. Moving through the shadows, he approached the city's outer wall. The Rosen's technology was advanced, but their reliance on rigid protocols was their greatest weakness. Michael used a grappling line to scale the wall, slipping past the guards with practiced ease. Inside, the city was a maze of towering structures and narrow alleyways, the air thick with the hum of alien machinery. He moved quickly, avoiding patrols and security drones. His path took him through a series of industrial zones, where Rosen workers toiled under the watchful eyes of armed overseers. The sight of their brutal efficiency only fueled Michael's resolve. Reaching the fortress's inner sanctum required crossing a heavily guarded plaza. Dozens of soldiers patrolled the area, their weapons gleaming in the dim light. Michael crouched behind a stack of crates, formulating a plan. "You could try asking them nicely to leave," Archer suggested, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Or I could give them a reason to," Michael replied, pulling a small device from his belt. He activated it, and a high-pitched alarm blared from the far side of the plaza. The soldiers reacted instantly, rushing toward the sound. Michael took advantage of the distraction, slipping across the plaza and into the fortress. The interior was a stark contrast to the industrial exterior. The walls were adorned with glowing glyphs, and the air was heavy with the faint scent of ozone. Michael's HUD guided him through the labyrinthine corridors, each step bringing him closer to his target. As he approached the central chamber, the defenses grew tighter. Automated turrets tracked his movements, and elite guards patrolled the area. Michael moved with precision, disabling the turrets with EMP grenades and taking down the guards with calculated strikes. His blade flashed in the dim light, each movement a testament to his training. Finally, he reached the door to Jorha's throne room. The massive, reinforced barrier was a testament to the warlord's paranoia. Michael placed a hacking device on the console, watching as the glyphs flickered and faded. The door hissed open, revealing the chamber beyond. Jorha sat on a throne of black metal, his massive frame illuminated by the pale blue light of the room. His eyes, cold and reptilian, locked onto Michael with a mixture of hatred and amusement. "So," Jorha rumbled, his voice echoing through the chamber, "the human pest finally shows himself. I was beginning to think you'd lost your nerve." Michael stepped inside, his movements calm and deliberate. "I don't lose my nerve. I just make sure my timing is perfect." Jorha rose from his throne, his towering form casting a long shadow. "You think you can stand against me? Against the might of the Rosen?" "I don't think," Michael replied, drawing his blade. "I know." The battle was ferocious. Jorha moved with surprising speed for his size, his claws slicing through the air with deadly precision. Michael countered with agility and precision, each strike of his blade calculated to exploit the warlord's weaknesses. Sparks flew as their weapons clashed, the sound echoing through the chamber. Jorha roared, his strength shaking the ground as he charged. Michael dodged, using the warlord's momentum against him. He activated a small explosive, attaching it to Jorha's armor and diving for cover as it detonated. The explosion staggered the warlord, but he recovered quickly, his rage fueling his attacks. The fight dragged on, both combatants pushing themselves to the limit. Michael's movements grew sharper, his strikes more focused as he anticipated Jorha's attacks. Finally, he found an opening, driving his blade into the warlord's chest. Jorha let out a guttural roar, his massive form collapsing to the ground. Michael stood over the fallen warlord, his breathing heavy. "That's for humanity," he muttered. As Jorah's lifeless body lay on the ground, Michael accessed the central console, broadcasting a message across the Rosen Empire. His face appeared on every screen, his voice calm and steady. This is a message to all who think humanity is weak. To those who would try to break us. You've seen what one man can do. Imagine what happens when all of us fight back. The broadcast ended, and Michael set the fortress's reactor to overload. As alarms blared, he made his way back through the corridors, fighting his way past the remaining guards. He reached his ship just as the fortress erupted in a massive explosion, the shockwave lighting up the sky. Back aboard, Archer's voice broke the silence. "You know, I didn't think you'd actually pull it off." Michael smirked, leaning back in his seat. "Never doubt me." As the ship ascended into the void, Michael allowed himself a moment of reflection. The Rosen had been dealt a crippling blow, their leader defeated, their empire in disarray. But he knew the fight wasn't over. Humanity's survival depended on vigilance, on never letting their guard down again. Michael Bracewell, the Hitman, stared out at the stars, his resolve unshaken. The galaxy would never forget what he had done, and neither would he.